This is Mike Einspar, and this is my interviews for special education. The three professionals I chose were Mr. LaBarber. He is the head principal at Weeki Wachee High School in Weeki Wachee, Florida. Mr. LaBarber and I worked together while I was in Florida. And prior to becoming an administrator, he was a special education teacher. In the state of Florida, it's known as Exceptional Student Education, ESE. So from here on, I will refer to his portion as ESE. Mrs. Sanella Hallman, she is a special education teacher in the high school at West Franklin High School, and Mrs. McCurdy, who is a teacher or a paraprofessional and parent at West Franklin High School. Child fine procedures. In the state of Florida, Mr. LaBarber's experience was to work collaboratively with the teachers, the students, the parents, anybody in the support staff to ID any struggling students that might have not been identified as a middle school and or elementary student. All three of the ones that I identified deal primarily with high school, where we do some identification of students who may have moved into the district, may have had a life-altering experience that need identification, a little bit later on in their schooling. But most of the time, we don't deal a whole lot with it. Mr. LaBarber does a lot of reviewing of scaffolds and differentiation that has taken place in the classroom to see if things can happen there prior to recommending a child to the IEP referral team. Here in the state of Kansas at West Franklin, we work for Three Lakes Cooperative, who do a very good job of sending out letters, emails, inviting parents and teachers to refer children for screening, which they do twice a year. They like to get them in as early as 3 years of age to get services as needed, and it's a free charge to the public. What they find to be the most challenging part of their role. Mr. LaBarber felt that the attaining appropriate resources to support students with disabilities, meaning funding. Okay, funding is a huge issue, especially for students with with students with learning disabilities, which covers the majority of our students. There are extra monies out there for severe cases, severe autistic, severe physical challenges, but the general population of ESE, there's not a ton of funding for. Mrs. Hallman felt like paperwork, just the amount of paperwork and the number of students on her caseload make it very challenging for her to work one-on-one with students, which is what she really likes. She doesn't get enough one-on-one time with them or as often as what she wants. Mrs. McCurdy felt like meeting daily goals, in the addition of class goals and IEP goals. She likes to have daily goals for the students to meet in every class. And part of that challenge is when we're short of staff, whether people are sick, we don't have enough people hired, is covering all the classes that we need to make sure that we are in compliance with the IEP. What is the most rewarding part of the job when dealing with special education students, parents, and teachers? Mr. LaBarber, the biggest thing he talked about was just the reciprocation that he sees of everybody that's fighting for that student, how they all work together. He loves to see it when, if it's a probation officer, the general education teacher, the special education teacher, a para, an administrator, an advocate, a coach, whoever it is, when they're all working together, he gets a lot of joy out of that. The other thing is he really, firsthand, I saw him witness when students can stand on their own, when they can leave high school and they've graduated and academically they can handle themselves, they can self-advocate, whether it's a social situation, a job situation. He loves it when they become adults and they leave his facility. Mrs. Holloman, she gets a lot of joy out of when the light bulb goes off and they can read. Okay, when a student who has really struggled with reading in the middle school or the elementary, when they get to the high school and she's worked with them and she's done a lot of strategies, and all of a sudden the light bulb goes off and things just take place, she gets joy in that. Mrs. McCurdy loves the challenge of figuring out what each student learns best by. Is it auditory? Is it visual? Is it hands-on? Is it lots of repetition? She loves the challenge and figuring out what makes each student work best. What advice do they have for the supervision of special education staff, including paras and speech pathologists and whatnot? Mr. LaBarber's big deal was hire qualified people. Make sure you surround yourself with people who know what they're doing, know how to handle situations, are very abreast with educational laws, specific special education laws, and know how to deal with the different disabilities that they are going to be dealing with. Mrs. Holloman, be very honest, transparent, and direct. That means make sure when you're talking to them, you're clear in what you're expecting out of them, whether it be documentation, how to talk to students, how to deal with students, what they'll be evaluated on, how, if they have issues, what the chain of command is, whatever it is, be very clear, concise, be very transparent, and then have direct communication. Mrs. McCurdy loves to be evaluated a lot. She wants to know almost daily how she's doing. Are things working? Did we feel like the kids were, taking to her, methods, how she's working with them, and all three of them had the common denominator of just a lot of really good communication, two-way communication, so that we can keep the best interest of the student in mind. How do they work effectively with parents and special needs children? Mr. LaBarbera, communication. Mr. LaBarbera and Mrs. Holloman communicate. Make sure it's early. Make sure it's often. Make sure that you're listening. Okay, listening to what they're needing. Okay, a lot of times we can get parents on board by listening to what they feel like their child needs, and then we figure out how to make it happen within the laws that we have to deal with. A lot of times the parents are the ones who are going to back us at home. We have them 7.5 hours a day or 8 hours a day. The other times the parents are the ones who are going to reinforce what we're trying to teach them, whether it's academic, whether it's behavior. That's big time. Mrs. Holloman really likes to communicate in any form manageable: mail, text, email, phone, in person. She tries to hunt them down sometimes. She sees them at the store. And again, clear communications. Mrs. McCurdy is very professional, does not communicate with the parents, refers them to administration and or teachers. How do they work with regular ed teachers with students with special needs? Mr. LaBarbera, his big thing was to ensure that all teachers, including special ed teachers and general education teachers, receive support. That whether it be through resources, whether it be through trainings, but also make sure a proper communication system is in place. That between the general education teacher, the special education teacher, the parents, the paras, the students, everybody is communicating in an effective manner. Mrs. Holloman, her biggest thing is when we're working with students in the classroom, that the teachers are responsible for the lesson plans. And as a SPED teacher, we need to do the modifications and accommodations so that we're following the IEP, we're working what's best, take recommendations from the general education teacher. And the nice thing in our district, we're a one-to-one Chromebook digital society, and so we do a lot of things on Google Classroom, and so it becomes easier to communicate and make modifications as need be through that. Mrs. McCurdy, again, communication. Just make sure that she's communicating with the general education teacher, make sure that the accommodations are met, and making sure she's doing what she needs to within the classroom there. What advice do they have for the first-year administrators? Mr. LaBarbera, first-year person should go take a course somewhere and familiarize themselves with the ESC guidelines. Make sure that they understand what a universal design is. Go back and dig up what the old PL 94-142 is, and make sure that they're delivering the free and public appropriate education. Very, very good recommendation there. Mrs. Holloman, again, be clear with your expectations, communicate with your staff, and be supportive. Make sure not, listen to parents, listen to students, but listen to your staff. They're the ones that are fighting for you out there in the trenches and doing a lot of work. So make sure you listen to what their needs are and try to accommodate them as much as you can. And again, Mrs. McCurdy didn't have a lot of input on this. She wasn't exactly sure what she was looking for in an administrator, but again, she likes to communicate. She's an over communicator. She wants you to be approachable and listen to what she needs. How do these describe the role of the special education teacher in the building principal? Mr. LaBarbera, they depend on each other. The teacher's there to support the students. The principal's there to support the teachers. They have to work hand in hand. One can't happen without the other. Mrs. Holloman pretty much had the same description there, that they need to work best as as a team together for the best interest of the student. Both of them agreed that as long as you keep the best interest of the student in mind, they have to work together. This is one Mrs. McCurdy had a lot of input on. She felt the SPED teachers are the ultimate modifier. Okay, when they will have the ones that have the ability or the say-so to modify, accommodate, and how to accommodate or help find resources for the paras. They're the ones that can go to the principal and ask how, is there a way to fund this? Maybe recommendations on asking other people, go to another school. But she felt like that was what the teacher's role was. Felt like the principal's role was to lay out what skills are needed, and the teacher's role was to make sure those skills happen. I would believe that, somewhat. I also believe it's also the teacher's role to find out, or to make sure we lay in line the skills that are needed. What characteristics do they see in aspiring administrators with regards to special education? Pretty simple, Mr. LaBarbera, be a child advocate. You have to have the best interest of the child to be successful in this business. Know your ESE laws and be able to support your staff and students. And build that culture, have a positive culture where people want to come in, where people feel inviting and warm and like they can be successful in your school. You want to make sure you're approachable by your parents, by district employees, anybody that you're going to be involved with. Mrs. Holloman, wants the administrator to be in the IEP meetings, all the time and be very involved. She wants to make sure that you're involved in the community, that you're seen out in the community, that you're not just at school, and again, you're unapproachable. She wants that holistic person that she loves she loves to talk to people, and she wants to make sure that you're approachable. Mrs. McCurdy had the same thing, be approachable, be student friendly, make sure that not the kids, they want to like you, but they have to respect you also, but that the kids, their name, more about them than just a name, a number, and a grade. Some of my final thoughts on this, as I talk to everybody, is a person that has been in education for a long time and as a head coach at several sports and been in charge of different staff and students and functions, you have to be a clear communicator. Okay, so my big thing in life is building positive relationships, surrounding yourself with people who work equally as hard as you, are smarter than you, and that will drive to a common goal for the betterment of the students. And that happens through communication. I have no problem picking up a phone call, driving to a person's house, doing an email, just to make sure that communication is clear. And I try to convey that to my staff on my teams that I coach, and also to the students that I deal with. I believe that you need to listen. As I talk to all three of the professionals I interviewed, you have to be a listener. You don't want to rush in and make rash decisions. You want to listen to the needs of the students. You want to make sure you listen to the needs of the IEP, and you want to make sure that you are following the letter of the law, whether it be your national, the national law, your state laws and your state standards or whatever it may be. But make sure you listen to everybody's input before you make an educated decision. And the last thing is, man, really like the kids. Be an advocate for the kid. Find a way for that kid to be successful. A lot of times, I truly believe an old coach told me that students and players won't always remember everything you tell them, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And I truly believe that. And one of my goals as administrators is to build a positive building where everybody feels like they have inputted and had a positive role in education. Thank you.